To push. Okay, so we're learning a mimer from Motzai Shabbos Parshas Pinchas, Mvorch Machoidish Menachemov Tafshin Lamed Ches, 1978. It talks about what in Parshas Pinchas it speaks about the division of the land of Eretz Yisrael based on a girdle, based on a lottery. So it says, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe leimer," and Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, "La'elu techalak haaretz v'gomer, to these you shall divide the land." So saying, and you should divide it in a way of a girdle. That's how you should divide it. You should through a girdle, through a lottery, is how the land will be divided. So it's brought down to Gemara Basra. It's also brought down in Rashi on Chumash. The Chalukas are Yeshua, that the division of the land in the days of Yeshua. In other words, when the Yidden finally entered Eretz Yisrael, really had three components to the division of the land. Hein begoyrel was both by lottery, Hein be'urim v'tumim, both by prophecy that the Kohen Gadol, wearing the urim v'tumim, Elazar HaKohen, who took over from his father Aaron, was able to transmit messages via the letters of the urim v'tumim, lighting up and so on. V'heim bekesef, and both monetarily. What it will explain monetarily means Aikal Loshon B'ksafim, or like the expression is, with monies. Hainu, this means through evaluating the worth of the portions of every shevet, every tribe in comparison to another tribe. I'm not going to go into it technically how all these three things work together, but all of them were the components in dividing Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara continues, not like the division of the present. In other words, the way the land was divided under Yeshua is the division of the world to come. When Mashiach is going to come, how Eretz Yisrael will be divided. In this world, in other words, in the times of Yeshua, Adam yesh leisad lavan, ein leisad parts. Person has a white field, literally. It means a field of grain or wheat. He has no orchard. Sada pardes, ein leisad lavan. But if he has a fruit orchard, he doesn't have a grain field. La'olam haba, in the world to come, when Mashiach comes, ein lecha kol echad ve'echad. There is no single yid. She'ein lebahar ubeshvela ube'emek. There is no person that will not have a lot and a portion both in the mountain, in the plain, and in the valley. In other words, they had all the different areas that agriculturally are useful for different types of things that you grow. Certain things are better on a mountain, some things are better in a plain, some things are better in a valley, etc. Should never be Nevuos Yechezkel, like it says in the Nevuos Yechezkel, Shar Reuven Echad, Shar Yehuda Echad, Shar Levi Echad, that Hashem was telling Yechezkel the portions that Reuven will have, the portions that Yehuda will have, the portions that Levi will have. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Machaluk Lam Ba'atzmoi, Hashem himself will divide it amongst the Shvatim. Therefore, his participation will ensure that everybody has what they need. It's known the examination of Arabei Nisim about this. It says at the end of Sefer Daniel, and for you is to the end, you will rest. In other words, you will pass away, and you will then arise in Tchias HaMesim to your lot, to the end of days. The Koya Allah Asad, it's referring to Mashiach's times, that's when there will be the resurrection of the dead, there will be Tchias HaMesim. The Mizem, moving from this, understood, Shagam Lasid Lavi, also in the future, even when the division will be by Hashem himself. Harei shayich le'inyan hagoydol is connected with the idea of a lottery. Ukefishi is bar lekamon, as it will be explained later on, what the idea of the lottery is. So one might have thought that a lottery only applies nowadays. In other words, when Yeshua brought the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, not when Mashiach comes. But because Mashiach Hashem himself is going to divide the land. Still in all, from the fact that it says that Daniel will arise, and he tells him that you will arise for your lot, as in the word Goyrel, so that means that even Mashiach's time there will also be a lottery, and what the significance of that is. The second paragraph, so the Rebbe goes on reading Gemara Sham Isa over there in that Gemara where it discusses this topic about the difference of the division of the land when Yeshua did it versus what's going to be when Mashiach comes. So it's brought down over there. That in the future, Eretz Yisrael has become divided to 13 tribes, to 13 Shvatim. Initially, it was only divided for 12 tribes. In the division, the way it was at present, meaning when Yeshua took the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, the tribe of Levi had no portion in Eretz Yisrael. As we'll bring down what the Rambam says, and from the Pasuk that Hashem told Shevet Levi, I am your portion, I am your lot. You will not have a physical land portion in Eretz Yisrael. Masha'enki laws it as opposed to in the future time when Mashiach comes, Gam Shevet Levi Noitel Chelik Bar. It's also Shevet Levi will take and have a portion, an allotment in the land of Eretz Yisrael. Like it says that the portion of Levi will be one. We can connect it with the fact that it says that when Mashiach comes, Hashem himself will divide the lands amongst the Shvatim. That's connected with the idea that Levi will also have a portion. Concerning the portion of Levi in this present day, Hashem said, like I mentioned before, that Hashem told them, don't worry about having a portion of Yisrael. I am your portion. I am your inheritance. Despite the fact that Hashem promised Shevet Levi that Hashem himself will be their portion. It's explained in Gemara when Mashiach comes, there'll be something novel and new. That also Shevet Levi will have a part in Eretz Yisrael. Seemingly, we need to understand how is it possible that Shevet Levi will receive something that's greater than Hashem saying, I am your portion, I am your inheritance? What could be greater than that? Giving them land? From this itself, it's understood. The very fact that Hashem himself will assign and apportion the land of Eretz Yisrael when Mashiach comes. It's something additional and incomparably higher in comparison to the matter of I am your portion and I am your inheritance. And that's why when Hashem divides the land, so then even Shevet Levi receives a portion. This is self-understood. When Mashiach comes, heaven forbid to say that Shevet Levi is somehow going to miss out on what they had beforehand. That beforehand Hashem said, I'm your portion, I'm your inheritance. Now for sure, Mashiach comes, they definitely won't lose out on that. It'll be added something novel and new. Hashem himself will apportion for them and give them also in the physical, literal land that's in the Holy Land. Next page. But the idea behind this is the avoid of Shevet Levi Bailam Haza Hoisa Lamed of Hashem L'Shor. So the avoid of Shevet Levi in this world was to stand before Hashem and to serve Him. Valderich is similar to what the Rambam wrote in his Sefer Mishnah Torah Yad Chazaka, the big 14 volume of the Rambam. Loi Shevet Levi Bolvad. It's not only Shevet Levi, Ella Kol Ish V'ish, but rather every single person. That his spirit was giving, was benevolent, was desirous. Lamed of Hashem l'sharsei la'avdei to stand before Hashem, to serve Him. Yi Hashem chelki v'nachlasi. Hashem will also be his portion and his inheritance. So therefore, we see how special this is. The novelty of Mashiach's times is, in addition to the fact that he's standing before Hashem to serve Hashem, he will also have a portion in the physicality of the world. And the physical aspect of the world that Shevet Levi will have will in no way be in contradiction to and interfere standing before Hashem to serve Him. Whereas at present, it was like an either or. Since Shevet Levi had to stand before Hashem, therefore we couldn't burden them and have them tend to the physical world, because this would detract from the fact that they have to do the service in the Beis HaMikdash. The difference between what Shevet Levi will be when Mashiach comes versus Shevet Levi, the way they are prior to Mashiach's times, is like the difference between Yosef and the Avos, that the Avos were a very high level. They were considered a chariot, a vehicle for Hashem. And because they were a chariot and a vehicle to Hashem, Ki Avos Hayurayit Sayin, the Avos, the forefathers, were shepherds. Like explained in the commentaries, the reason why they were shepherds, because since they were shepherds, they were able to be removed from this world in fields and in forests. Similarly, we find concerning the Baal Shem Tov, like it's related in the memoirs of the leader of our generation, in other words, the Frierdiker Rebbe's memoirs, known as the Lubavitcher Rebbe's memoirs, that he used to be alone in forests. Because through being removed from this world, being totally not engaging with the world, they were able to reach the apex and the ultimate of being a vehicle for Hashem. Mashen can be Yosef Namar, as opposed to by Yosef it says, Yosef was the polar opposite. He was completely engaged with Mitzrayim to such a degree that no one could, quote unquote, raise their hand or foot, meaning do anything without the permission of Eretz Mitzrayim. Einam Yehudim, we're talking about non-Jews, would not be able to do anything without Yosef's say-so. So Afal became, despite Yosef being so invested and involved in the life of Mitzrayim, like Nog a cloud's kosher Yosef, it didn't touch at all and did not affect Yosef's righteousness in Kol HaPirushim Shebezeh, with all the explanations of this. Like it's explained, the ultimate perfection of the quality of Yosef, both in the revealed part of Torah and also according to Chassidus. The Yisrael came by Kabbalah, even more so. Kabbalah explains how high and lofty Yosef was. Though he came home to do his work, meaning he was engaged in the world. Similar to a person plowing the field and sowing the field. Along with this, it was in such a way that Yosef was also, while being engaged in the world, he was a divine chariot, and even higher than a divine chariot. So this distinction between the Avos and Yosef is similar to the difference between Shevet Levi that had to be removed from this world up till Mashiach's times, and during Mashiach's times when even Shevet Levi, while being in service to Hashem, while being Hashem being their lot and their portion, Shevet Levi is still going to have a portion in Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe is going on even further, that this great level of Yosef was a precursor and a preparation for Yaakov being able to come into Mitzrayim. Since Yaakov Avinu had to eventually come down to Mitzrayim because Hashem had to fulfill the whole situation of the Eden going into Golus Mitzrayim, so before Yaakov could come in, Yosef, as we'll soon explain, who was on a higher level and could engage with Mitzrayim, had to pave the way for that. So he says in the second paragraph, this is the reason why only after Yosef was brought down to Egypt. Actually, so you did this Yaakov of Mitzrayim was possible to be that Yaakov was a descent to Mitzrayim, only in such a manner that I will raise you up, surely raise you up. Because of the preparation for this, we need a very powerful revelation. And what was that preparation? And what was the greater revelation before Yaakov had come down? The Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim, that Yosef descended to Mitzrayim. And similar to what's explained in many places, the Lefnei Haskalos Inyan Chodesh, before the beginning of something new, Tzarech Legalus Or Gadol B'Yotzer, we need to reveal a much greater light to be able to pave the way for what has to go on later. Like it's understood in the way of a Kal V'Chomer for what's explained concerning the dedication of the Beis HaMikdash. That when it comes to dedicate the Beis HaMikdash, it's a much greater revelation than many more karbonis, etc., than what the daily running of the Beis HaMikdash is. Because when you need to have the avodah of the Beis HaMikdash, it needs to be preceded by some other greater revelation. In Mamar Chassidus, they also liken it that chinuch of a child as well, before they bring him in to cheder, before they begin his chinuch. So when he's 3 years old, they bring him to cheder and they throw candies on him. They make a big deal because that is the way of chinuch. Chinuch and dedication is about, you need to, at the time of dedication, bring down much more energy than what usually takes place. Is similar to this also. Even the dedication that's going to take place by the third Beis HaMikdash, that is going to be necessary for the dedication of the third Beis HaMikdash, like it's explained also in the prophecy of Yecheskel that speaks about the third Beis HaMikdash. We're going to need additional karbonis, more than what's brought on a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, because that's what happens by a dedication when you're mechanech something new. There'll be also an addition in all matters that are connected with the holiness of the Beis HaMikdash. Since it's a dedication and a new beginning. So just like in these other new beginnings, you need additional energy and quality, the same thing. In the beginning of the avodah of Am Yisrael descending into Mitzrayim, you need the great power of Yosef. Similar and even more so concerning the idea of descending into Mitzrayim to transform the idea of Golus. That's the whole purpose of going into Mitzrayim, to transform Mitzrayim. This is something that's incomparably higher than the dedication of the first and second Beis HaMikdash. So, in other words, the necessary energy before entering Mitzrayim has to be so much more powerful even than the energy that had to be when dedicating the first and second Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because then when they dedicated the first and second Beis HaMikdash, at that time the Yidden were resting upon their land in Eretz Yisrael. As opposed to Kishatzarech Li is called Kol godly yeshuva hena, when it has to be the result of Golus, the outcome, the positivity of Golus, which is a great congregation will return here by the third base of Migdash. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu Malak, this Kol Echad V'Achas Hashem, will gather every single man and woman, and he will take them out of Golus, the land of where they are scattered, add to such a degree, even those that are far flung, that are founded on the edges of the heaven. Like it's no the explanations in this, like it says above, that there will come those that are lost in the land of Ashur and those that are flung away in the land of Mitzrayim. They will bow down to Hashem, the holy mountain, like explained in the Amorim Yom Kippurim at length. That when you need to gather in such a powerful exile, so for sure it's understood how powerful the revelations have to be as a dedication before that. All matters of the future time, the same as Managolus, are dependent on our actions and service during the time of Golus. That's why the Rambam brings in the pasuk that speaks about, I am your portion, I am your inheritance. Gamas pasuk Hashem enos chelki. David HaMelech said, Hashem is the portion of my lot. Ata toimich garoli, you support my lot. Hainu degam kasher Hashem enos chelki. Even when Hashem is my lot, even when Hashem is my portion, yeshnei inyan hagoyrol, there's still the idea of a lottery. But inyan who the idea behind this is the mekiv shema saying over the same as managos. Hey, mamavim is calling the lost love since our actions and service during the time of exile. They bring about all the revelations of Mashiach's times. Look at the lost love, including also the fact that the division of the land when Mashiach comes will come about through Hashem himself instead of the other means with which they took place when Yeshua entered Eretz Yisrael. Along with the fact that Hashem will be the one that will portion the land, there will still be the lottery. Like Hashem told Daniel, you will rise up for your lot by the end of days. Moving for this understood, that in our actions and service at the conclusion of Golus. And the conclusion of the Golus is the time that's Hamashlim Golus. It completes and like finishes. Our avodah gives the finishing touches to the Golus. Maybe as Agulad Lamata Masarat Tvachim and brings about the redemption that should be below 10 handbreadths. Tzarech Liyas Eifna Avodah the Goydel. We also need to have the avodah of the lottery. From the avodah of the lottery that we can have now, it's also be understood what function will there be of the lottery when Mashiach comes, even though Hashem is the one that's going to apportion the lands to everyone. The idea here is like it's explained in the Mamorim of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Marash, and the Rabbeim following them. There's a part of the soul, that's the head, that's the general part of it, and the essence of the soul. That this level of the essence of the soul, even Rabbi Yochanan Zaki said, I do not know what path they will lead me. That on his deathbed he was crying because he wasn't sure what would happen with him. Why? Because he didn't know what was going down with his essence. Like the Alter Rebbe writes concerning Rabbi Yochanan Zaki, they said, I do not know in what way they are leading me. Though there is by him the great and wondrous thing that it says 40 years he served Talmidei Chachamim, and 40 years he studied, and 40 years he taught Torah. Till there, he didn't walk 4 cubits without Torah. Became, despite his life being so completely embedded and invested in Torah study, Amar, he said, I do not know, because the not knowing was not of something bad in the literal sense, but rather this the not knowing, that's a level of the soul that's higher than knowledge and understanding. And that level of the soul that's higher than knowledge and understanding is the level of a lottery. Something that's beyond reason and understanding, that's an idea of a lottery. Because if a person knows by logic that this belongs to this person, this belongs to that person, then you don't need to have a lottery. A lottery is when we have to reach beyond and above intellect. We're soon going to talk about that there's the lottery that's below intellect, the lottery that's above intellect. But the idea of a goyrel, that's the level of the soul that's beyond understanding, beyond intellect. The explanation of this matter is similar to explained in a different place. The what Alter Rebbe uses the term at the beginning of chapter 2 in Tanya. He says, a part of Hashem above mamish. That's a quote from a pasuk, but Alter Rebbe adds the words mamish. By using that, by creating that phrase, so the Alter Rebbe is indicating in that phrase, the Alter Rebbe has contained in it 2 extremes. Mamish, that's mamish, really a part of Hashem. And also mamish, loshen mamoshes, that mamish is also from the word something that's substantial, something can be touched, something that is tangible. In other words, the godly soul comes down here into this world where it's almost tangible because of the physical body. So the Rebbe says, in a similar vein, when the Alter Rebbe in the Geras HaKodesh speaks about a goyrel mamash, that's the idea of the goyrel with something beyond intellect, but it deals with a mamash with something that's tangible in the physical. In the Mamorim, they bring 2 examples of what is considered in a person's soul, what is the avodah of goyrel? What is this level that is not of the intellect? So there is the goyrel of the lowest level, the betachtes from adregis, and the lowest of levels. What is a goyrel, a lottery? It's the faith, the basic faith that a first person believes in Hashem before he begins his service of Hashem, before he begins thinking about Hashem, and so on. That's what it says, that how fortunate, how good is our portion, and how pleasant is our lot, from the word lottery, that every Yid says before davening. In other words, before he begins his avodas Hashem, he already has this basic belief in Hashem, the basic level of the girdle of the lottery. That is the level of faith that's an inheritance to us from our forefathers. This level of girdle, this simple faith that precedes our avodah in spheres that corresponds to the sphere of Malchus, the lowest of the 10 spheres. Can move about Rushim Shom like it's brought down over there in the Mamorim. After we have begun our avodah, so then Batachlis Shleimus avodah comes the ultimate perfection of our service. That's the belief and faith in Soiv Kalamin, Ad Soiv Kalamin Hamiti, until the ultimate level that transcends all the worlds. That's not just beyond the worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Tzira, Asiyah, but it's even way higher than that, in the utmost highest level. That belief, that's not the basic belief of an ordinary person before they began Avodas Hashem. That's a belief. Once has studied Chassidus, and they've studied the deepest ideas, and then they come to the belief of something that transcends their understanding, that's a much higher level of Gurul, a much higher level of Amunah. It comes after one service and after meditation. This means after all the matters involving reason and understanding in the levels of Memal Klam, in the levels of Seder Ishtalshlos, in Yacharkach Baal Bechinas Lo Yadaiti Nafshi. Then he comes to a level, the Pasuk says, I do not know my very soul. That's the level of the lottery that's beyond understanding and reason. That's the other extreme of the lottery. Even something to a level it's beyond extremes. Saying one extreme and another extreme, it's beyond even being categorized in the level of extremes. And Spheres, that's higher even into level of the sphere of Bina. The first level of Gurul, we said, that's the level of the sphere of Malchus. This secondary level of Gurul is the sphere of Bina, or even higher, the sphere of Malchus, the sphere of Keser, Va'ad l'Pnimius HaKeser, until the inner level of Keser. The Gurul shebizman hagolus. That's the avoid of the lottery that's in the time of the golus. Ki avoid bizman hagolus kshura beikrem koyach emunah, because the avoid in the time of golus is connected primarily with the idea of faith and belief. Ubefrat bazman dikvus the Mashiach, especially in the time of the heels of Mashiach. That's explained. That's brought down many times. The example for this, from the heel that's in the foot, the heel in the foot listens immediately to the commands of the head. It's not possible to have even any type of discussion and back and forth. Because it is, we say that self-sacrifice is easier in the heel more than the head. That's why to go into a hot bath, for the heel, it's easier than the head. Not just because the head might be more sensitive and the heel is less sensitive, but because the heel, by its very nature, has Kabbalah soil, has this faith and belief. Allah has how much more so than the limbs and organs that are between the heels and the head, that the heel has more Mesiras Nefesh. And that is the time of the heels of Mashiach, where we are like heels, that we have this self-sacrifice and this belief that transcends intellect. But we said that in emunah, in belief, there are two levels of belief. So he says the same thing in Mesiras Nefesh. There's two levels as well of self-sacrifice. Mesiras Nefesh, Yeshna Bezin Yonim, self-sacrifice, there's two aspects and components. Both from the perspective of the simple, ordinary belief and faith, that also the most lightest, if you will, in the observance of Torah mitzvahs, like it's explained in Tanya, has this self-sacrifice. So that's like the lowest level of emunah, the lowest level of Gurul. Also from the perspective of the ultimate level of belief, where the belief has been fed, has been taken out to graze, meaning it's been grown and tended to. So even the higher level of emunah, both of these levels of belief and self-sacrifice are to be found in two aspects of Gurul. And in a similar vein, we're going to say Purim, which Purim means Gurul, like lottery. Purim in the plural indicates two levels of Gurul. That's also what's brought down Mamorim, Mashakasa, what it says. Al Kain Karul Yom Me'ela Purim Al Shema Pur. That's why they call these days Purim, because of the lottery. Shalachura Pur Lashon Yachid. Seemingly Pur is in the singular. Why is it called Purim in the plural if we're talking here about the one lottery? And you know the idea behind this is the Pur who are Gurul. Pur was the lottery, Vahaman Hippel Pur who are Gurul Delumas. Haman threw a lottery, which is the Gurul of Klippa. That's what Haman was trying to defeat the Yidden with. Purim, it was transformed. The girdle of Klippa, to such a degree for the Jewish people was light and joy and gladness and glory and honor. That's why they called it Purim in the plural. Also the lottery of the opposite side was transformed. Ad loifin shel zachi is still in the way of merits, as we know that through tshuva we transform the intentional the intentional sins into merits. So powerfully is the transformation of the girdle of Klippa to the girdle of Kedusha that's included in one word, Purim. And they're like all mingled together. The lottery of Kedusha with the lottery of Klippa that's been transformed to Kedusha. That is the avoid of the time of the heels of Mashiach, which we said before. That's the avoid of self-sacrifice. That has to do with a lottery. To such a degree, even concerning the self-sacrifice of an ordinary Jew. The Torah of truth says about this the self-sacrifice of an ordinary Jew. That Moshe Rabbeinu was humble from every person that's on the face of the earth, and the Chazal say that this means that Moshe Rabbeinu was shown the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice of Yidden in the times at the heels of Mashiach, and that's what brought him humility. He was humbled by the self-sacrifice of our generation. So we see how powerful the level of the girdle is, the level of self-sacrifice and belief, even of an ordinary Jew, not the higher level of faith and girdle and so on. Before Chassidus, like to explain the Chassidus, he was specifically humble in comparison to the Jewish people that were found in the generation of the heels of Mashiach. And despite the fact that they are in such a low generation, they study Torah, mitzvahs, and they are not affected and challenged by the tests and the challenges that they have. Not even the test of the scoffers. In other words, the Rebbe sometimes will say that the test of what it says at the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, al yevish v'pnei hamaligim, a person should not be embarrassed in front of the scoffers. That test is, in certain ways at least, more difficult than the self-sacrifice of previous generations, where people literally list their lives and livelihood and family and children and freedom for Torah mitzvahs. The test of not being embarrassed is even more difficult, and it's a greater self-sacrifice. And when Moshe Rabbeinu witnessed this, Baruch HaKodesh, which is Apollo to Moshe Tosefes Ilui Ba'anov Shaloi, this affected by Moshe an increased level in his humility. Even though Moshe himself, before all of this, was humble, in other words, this is who he was. So he didn't need anything extra. Still, a note was added in this humility over all men that were on the face of the earth. Through meditating in the avoid of simple people. Ordinary people in the times of the heels of Mashiach, and through meditating in that brought him thinking and looking and examining what the Yidden do then. This brought him. You still can't hear me? Hello? This brought him to a greater level. Okay, so we're saying that was added now in this humility that he already had from every person that was upon the face of the earth. Hainu idea is bonus by avodas hanoshim pshutim because the Mashiach. When Moshe Rabbeinu thought into the avodah of ordinary people, at the heels of Mashiach, that brought him even to a greater level of humility. So we see how powerful our self-sacrifice, our belief, our avodah in a way of goyrel, in a way of a lottery, is so great. Moshe is both the first Redeemer and the final Redeemer. Moshe wanted to enter Eretz Yisrael, but his entrance was pushed off for a different time, meaning for Mashiach comes. And he was told, he will enter Eretz Yisrael with the coming of Mashiach. You do on the well-known expression that Aaron Moshe imahem, that Aaron and Moshe will go into Eretz Yisrael along with the Yidden that are coming in from Golus. Hainu, this means the noise of L'chol Yom Shepal Aidei Sharas Eretz Yisrael Be'einav V'Yosef Be'evar Yarden. In addition to all the spiritual things that Moshe Rabbeinu affected through seeing Eretz Yisrael from across the Jordan, that Hashem told him, you can't enter Eretz Yisrael, but look at Eretz Yisrael. And Chassidus explains that the look of a tzaddik, especially the look of Moshe Rabbeinu, like we learned yesterday, is something that affects powerfully. So therefore, his looking at Eretz Yisrael, even though he was outside of Eretz Yisrael, affected and helped the Yidden's avodah in Eretz Yisrael. So in addition to what was happened then, but when Moshe and Aaron will actually enter Eretz Yisrael, Mashiach comes. So then it'll also be fulfilled through him the physical mitzvahs in the physical Eretz Yisrael. So too it's understood concerning every single Yid. According to what's explained in Tanya, in every single Yid there's a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. To such a degree, everything that Hashem asks from you, because the Rebbe is paraphrasing a pasuk, Ma Hashem shoyel mi'imach kim liyiroisi. What is Hashem asking of you? Only to fear Him. And the Gemara says, "Hey, milah zuter said this is a minor thing. Fearing Hashem," the Gemara says, is a minor thing. So the Gemara explains, yes, in comparison to Moshe, it's a minor thing. But what does that help us? The Rebbe explains, because since every Yid has a Moshe Rabbeinu within him, so what's considered minor is considered minor for me also. Und das wird sein avodah. This becomes the avodah of every Yid, what Moshe Rabbeinu is about. This is why when Mashiach comes, it says that Hashem will divide the land personally instead of using these other means. The idea of the lottery in a soul, the level of the soul, that this lottery, that's the belief and self-sacrifice, etc. What level of the soul is that? That's the Yechidah Shebenafesh Kimavur. Badrushim, like it's explained in the Mamorim, Shenikras Yechidah Al Shem Shemekabel Spchinas Yachid. It's called Yechidah, which is the feminine of the word Yachid, which is the masculine. Hashem is called Yachid, the only one. Yechidah is the feminine of the word Yachid because she's the receiver. The Yid's essence of the soul is so connected with Hashem, who's Yachid. Because it's explained in Eitz Chaim, a Kabbalah Sefer, that Yechidah, that's the spark of the created being that receives and contains in it the spark of the Creator. So that's why it's Yechidas, that's the highest level. All matters now are in a state of concealment and covering. Because this is now before the redemption through Hashem's very essence and being. So therefore, since it's still in the time of Golus, it's something that's concealed. But through our actions and service throughout the time of Golus, we complete and conclude the avodah and we affect that this matter should be drawn down, to skip the parentheses, that we draw down the unique and only level of Hashem that's higher than the level of Yechidah, which is the essence of our soul. This also affects that there should be also the idea of the lottery. Goydel is already a type of Metzias that's already defined and has limitation. And then comes down also in a way of the Urim V'Tumim. Now the Urim V'Tumim, like I said, had different letters of the Shvatim light up when a message had to come through. So it already comes from this level, it's beyond limitation, into detailed messages and detailed directives the way they are in letters. And from that eventually comes a division by value, through the division being according to the worth of the different parts in the world. If they're in a mountain, a plain, or the valleys, they love and they pardis, if it's a wheat field or it's a fruit orchard, etc. The main thing is, in other words, the Rebbe is saying is that this Goydel manifests itself in the physicality of this world. Last page. We still need to understand. In the future time, it says that foreigners will rise up and they will take your sheep out to pastures, meaning non-Jews will take care of our physical needs and so on. Skip the parentheses. What advantage is there to have all these fields, etc., etc.? The idea behind this is according to what's explained in a different place. The great advantage of the physical until when Mashiach comes, the soul will be sustained by the body. But Tanya has like explained in Tanya the explanation for this. Since how does the neshama study Torah now? That's specifically through physical lips. So therefore, and not just the lips, but all the 5 areas in the mouth are called the 5 enunciators. There's the tongue, there's the teeth, all these, etc. All these different parts of the mouth contribute and enable the neshama to study Torah. So it's the physical body that enables the neshama to do holy things. Therefore, they become refined and purified and elevated and sanctified. And not just that they become elevated, even more so. Because since only through the physical body it comes about all of this, the mitzvahs and so on. The physical body has an advantage over the neshama. Similar to what it says, when Mashiach comes, the soul will be sustained by the body. And the empowerment for all of this will be from the matter the way it took place the first time around. In the 7 years that Eden conquered Eretz Yisrael, in the times of Yeshua, and the 7 following years that they had to apportion and divide the land in the times of Yeshua. Through the Eretz Yisrael became an everlasting inheritance. And it came out revealed what was already affected in the covenant amongst the parts. In other words, what Hashem promised Avram when he split the animal in 2, that the Eden will have Eretz Yisrael, that was only a promise. It actually manifested itself once there was the apportionment of the lots in the times of Yeshua. It's an everlasting covenant and promise, what Avraham Avinu was told, for every single Yid and for all Yidden until the end of all generations. And the preparation for this is already at the time that was said that to these the land would be divided, and all the details following this, Ad ach b'gorel yicholkas haaretz, until what it says in our parsha that only through a lottery will the land be divided. Ad kemuzur b'Torah shvapa, until the way it's explained in the oral Torah that it wasn't just the girdle itself, it wasn't just the lottery itself, but shenimshach gam b'urim v'tumim b'kesef. It came down also in the urim v'tumim and also in the monetary value that each plot was compared to the other plot. And the division of the land that took place under Yeshua is the preparation, a vessel for the division that's going to take place when Mashiach comes. Because then it will be like the days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. Because they're going out of the land of Mitzrayim was to arrive at the good and broad land of in such a manner that would be good and broad and comfortable. Like it's explained in Madrash Chazal, if the Yidden would have merited, you would have immediately brought them and planted them in your mountain of your inheritance, and the set place for your settling, at which Hashem you made and your hands made, the Beis HaMikdash would have immediately been fulfilled. That meaning the Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash, Hashem Himself gave, and the land, the way Hashem Himself apportions, and so on. Move on for this understood that even though we didn't have it, but still it was the beginning of the process. This is a preparation, a vessel that should be speedily, that Hashem will divide it to them and apportion it to them Himself. It will also come down the way that it says by Daniel, you will rise up to your lottery to the end of days. The pardes, that every single one has both a grain field and both a fruit orchard, both in the mountain, the plain, and the valley. If we call it like all the explanations of what all these things are spiritually, physically, and so on. It comes in the way that immediately they will be redeemed. Every single Yidden and the entire Klal Yisrael, a great congregation will return here. But Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, the coming Mashiach Tzidkenu, Yahweh V'Yigaleinu V'Elcheinu Kamisl Artzeinu, will come and redeem us and lead us upright to our land. B'Meheira V'Yameinu Mamish, speedily in our days Mamish.